So we are going to continue where we left off in the last video. As you can see over here, this is our list item we created in the last video. So we are going to continue where we left off, and we are going to start styling this list item. So let's go over to our web page and see how this looks. And this is what we did in our last video. We created a list item. So we are going to go over to the styles of CSS and start styling these list items. Okay, so now let's go over to our styles of CSS. Now you can see over here, this is just a comment. I stated this is going to be our default styles. Okay, this is just comment, it's not displayed on your web page. Okay, this is just here to tell you that this is going to be our default style. That is what this is used for. It's a comment, it's not displayed on our web page. Okay, you won't see this thing on your web page. If we refresh this now, you can see there is nothing happening here. We are not seeing it. It's not displaying on our web page. Okay, so if you want to put this, it's optional. If you want to use a comment, if you don't want to use it, but this is a good practice to tell you, maybe if you have lots of code and you don't want if you have lots of code and you want to remember is a particular piece of some code. Okay, so this is very good to use. Okay, and now to do this, you can use this star. You can see forward slash star, and you can just throw anything inside here. I throw a pound sign, and I called it default styles. Okay, and you can see if you want to close it, you use your star and then your forward slash as well. Like I said, this is not displayed on the web page. It's just for reminder purpose that this is going to be our default style. Okay, so now let's start styling our list items. Now what we need, since this is going to be let's just start this here. So we are going to we have a nav, so we'll say nav give a comma, header, give a comma, and footer. So I'm doing this now because we are going to have a nav, as you can see, and that nav is also a header. So that's why I'm putting header here. And in this website, obviously, we are going to have a footer. So now to style this now, we just do this, and we are going to display this as a block. We are going to display this as a block. Say display block. Now we are displaying this as a block because we want we want the browser to position it as a block, the nav, the header, and the footer, because they are going to be stacking on top of each other. That's why we are displaying it as a block. Okay, so the next thing we do is the body. We are going to style our body. Now as for this body, we are going to give it a margin of 0. Now we are giving it a margin of 0 because by default, browsers automatically adds a margin, about 5 pixel margin on your web page. Okay, so by setting it to a margin of 0, it's going to remove that margin. Okay, so if we refresh this on our web page now and see, refresh, now you can see that space you can see how it's shifted a little bit. So that is that. So now the next thing we are going to do here from the body, we are going to specify a line height because we don't want our text to be too close to each other. So by specifying a line height, line hyphen height, we are going to specify a line height of 1, just 1. By specifying a line height, the text on our web page won't be too close to each other. It's going to be readable. Okay, so that's the purpose of this line height, right? So the next thing after the body, I think this is enough for our default styles. So that is the reason for this default styles that I gave here. So this is going to be all for our default stylings. So the next thing we are going to do, we are going to give the stylings for our nav. Okay, so let's just copy this. So we are going to call this nav. We're going to call this nav styles. Navbar styles. what we call this navbar style. So now what we need to do for this nav is at first we specify a nav. We're going to style our nav now. That's navbar, okay? So for this nav, we're going to give it a margin of 0 because we don't want the browser to add any margin. So it's a good practice. We're going to also give it a margin of 0, and we want this nav to take off the whole entire width of the screen. So we're going to give it a width of 100%. The width of 100%. Yeah. So this will be all for the nav. And now remember, we have an unordered list. So we say nav ul unordered list. So if I go here now in our HTML to show you can see we have a nav, and inside this nav we also have an unordered list. You can see the nav. After the nav we have a unordered list. So let's go back to our CSS. So that's why we have this nav, and we also have unordered list. So what we're going to do here is to style this. We're going to style this. We'll give it a background color. I'm going to give this a background color of teal. Now you can use any color, but this is the color I'm going to use. I'm giving it a background color of teal. And let's refresh this on our web page to see how this looks. And here you can see we have our background color. Okay, so let's go down here and give this after a background color, we are going to give this a margin of 0. Like I said, it's a good practice because we don't want anything shifting, we don't want any space. We're going to give this a margin of 0. We don't want the browser to add anything, and we're also going to give this a padding of 0. Padding of 0. So if you refresh this, I want you to see how this will shift this now. Refresh. Now you can see there is no margin and there is no padding. Okay. So the next thing we are going to do for this, we are going to give this an overflow of hidden. Overflow. We are going to give this hidden. Now the reason, let me give some space here. Now the reason for this overflow of hidden is because now when you have a navbar, there are some cases when the browser shrinks. When the browser shrinks into a mobile view, you will start seeing some things shifting around up and down. You will start seeing scrolling. So we don't want those scrollings. Okay, we want everything. So by giving this an overflow of hidden, when there is any, if the browser is on a mobile view, anything that is too big is going to hide it. Okay, it's going to hide it. If it's an image, if the image is too big, the browser is going to hide it. So that's why we give this overflow of hidden. So any element that is overflowing, the browser is going to hide it. Okay, if it's an image, it's going to hide it. If it's a text, it's going to hide it. So anything that is overflowing, the browser is not going to show it. So that's why we gave it an overflow of hidden inside of our unordered list. Okay, so if we refresh this thing, now you can see there's nothing will happen because that thing is an invincible stuff. So if it only works when the browser is shrink. So when it's on a mobile view, anything that is overflowing, the browser is going to hide it. Okay, so so we have styled our nav. We have also styled our unordered list. Okay, we gave it a background color of teal, a margin of 0, padding of 0, and an overflow of hidden. Okay, so I think we should give this a color. Yeah, I think we should give this a color. Let's give this a color. I'm going to give this a color of white. Let's see if this is going to display. It's not going to display yet because we haven't gone to the anchor tag. We haven't started styling the link. So we are going to remove that color for now. And we are going to add the color when we start working with our anchor tag. Okay, So in the next lecture, we are going to start working with our list items and also with the links. Okay, the links, which is the A tag. Okay, so this is for the nav, and for the unordered list. And we also styled our, as you can see above here, we also styled our nav, we styled our header, we styled our footer, we gave it a display of block, the body, we also gave it a margin of 0 and a line height of 1. So this will be all for this lecture. In the next lecture, we are going to continue styling our list item, and we are going to also style the link. Okay, so I'll see you guys in the next